Welcome, everybody. We're resuming our introductory Buddhism Dharma talks, Q&A, and kind of a general overview of basic Buddhist principles and teachings, primarily from the Tibetan perspective, the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And we have with us Tal, a beginning student, who's been asking some wonderful questions, and we'll just continue along. I'd also like to invite anyone that's watching to submit any questions you may have. Anything at all you would like to talk about or hear about would be great. You're warmly invited to participate. So, Tal, we were just talking about the 7-branch prayer and the 2 accumulations, which are the accumulation of merit and wisdom. Do you have any particular questions at this moment?
So in number 6, when we ask the awakened ones, or the Buddhists, the Buddhas rather, not to leave us to be the lamps in the darkness, and if we take reincarnation as a given, is the end result of all souls to become Buddhas, no matter how long it takes? And second part to that is, if Buddhas exist, how many already exist? How many are there? Is there a number that we can know?
427. No.
42, like the.
You got me there. I couldn't tell you how many Buddhas there are. There's said to be innumerable Buddhas. The universe is infinite beyond our conception. And time, we often say in the West, modern science says, the Big Bang happened 13.8 billion years ago. Somewhere between 13 and 14 billion years is the age of the universe since the Big Bang. That's pretty much what astrophysicists have kind of figured out. But if you really look at the sort of the teachings, let's say, that come from ancient India that are cosmological, that talk about sort of the scale and the scope of the universe, it's said that that's not even in the ballpark. 13, 14 billion years, that's nothing, because that's maybe the current cycle of this universe. But according to that understanding, there's been countless universes coming into existence and going out of existence. So say there's no beginning, cannot find a beginning. No one can. No scientist, no enlightened being. There is no beginning. It's beginningless. And we say endless. So this is something that's not in the province of our logical mind. It's not something that's quantifiable in terms of, let's say, science, or understandable through logic. So maybe we accept it as a leap of faith. Maybe we just table that and say, who the heck knows? But as long as there's a universe, as long as there's sentient beings, and we said this in an earlier talk, the definition of a sentient being is a living being, not a rock, but a living being that has sentience, that has some kind of actual awareness. And that awareness is obscured. It's not perfect awareness. It's confused. It's veiled. It's limited. And it's said that sentient beings like that are without limit. And as long as there are sentient beings, there is suffering, there's confusion, there's grasping, there is a sense of incompleteness, And you could say, alongside that, there are and always have been perfected beings that are not confused. We call them Buddhas. That's just a word, a Buddha. Buddhas don't belong to Buddhism. Buddhism is just a system of teachings that we've kind of collected together as part of humanity's heritage, coming from the particular latest Buddha that appeared in this world approximately 2,500 years ago. And we've codified teachings and preserved them and transmitted them, and that's called Buddhism. But a Buddha is a universal being, some being that is completely awakened and has completely dropped the notion of a separate self, and has totally fully perfected their wisdom and their heart, their compassion. How many? That's like asking how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. You know, these are not, so we actually say in Buddhism, not an important question. Don't ask, because these are unanswerable questions, and they're of no particular relevance to our actual situation, which is my condition of confusion, of incomplete knowing, and my inability to really fully help others, which is a source of, if we're really a caring and compassionate and empathetic person, can be a source of great inspiration and maybe frustration combined, but inspire us to do more and do better so we can be of benefit. But again, as I said in a previous video, the core teaching is what Ram Dass said in his book, his message to the hippies, which is be here now. And I have to come back to that. Be here now. So not worry too much about how many Buddhas are out there somewhere, and that kind of thing. Just be here now. Right now, I've got enough at least I'll speak for myself, Tal. I have enough on my plate to last this lifetime. And I've got my work cut out for me to continue to strive to be better, to be more awake, to be completely content, and to have my heart as open as possible. If I start pondering how many Buddhas are there in the universe and how many angels are dancing on the pinheads, it's maybe not a satisfying answer, but it's a somewhat, at least for myself, I will say it's a distraction from doing my own personal work of objectively knowing myself and continually seeing and learning and experiencing, how do I drop myself? How do I use wisdom to penetrate through my illusions, through my confusion, through my sense of separateness?
I guess my question to follow that up with what you just said would be, so is the end result, regardless of your practice in Buddhistic ideas, or I guess however you get there, is it to become a Buddha eventually throughout however many lifetimes or through infinity?
Yeah, well, the short answer is yes. Now, if I want to elaborate a little bit on that, not necessarily to become a Buddha, but to become enlightened. A Buddha and an enlightened being, somebody who has enlightened themselves, there's a difference. So not to get into this too much, because it's a little too sort of philosophical, but a Buddha is a particular enlightened being that is, through causes and conditions and synchronicities, or whatever we want to call it, comes to the world and teaches confused humanity and presents universal teachings that everything is interdependent, that everything is impermanent and transitory, that there's no real self to be found in anything, in any phenomena, and so on. So a Buddha is a sort of a specific enlightened being that has certain qualities. But for a normal sentient being like you or me, or anyone watching this, the goal is to, you could say, I mean, these are funny words talking about goals and things, but yes, the goal, you could say, is to fully wake up, to drop the lower, the separate self, and to fully develop one's wisdom and compassion and be completely perfected to the extent that we are able, we become, let's say, a perfected being.
Is there a being that is, when you use the word perfected, I feel it's a hard thing to imagine, I guess,
Yeah.
what a perfected being would be. But um, are there any other types of enlightened beings other than, let's say, the Buddha, that not necessarily is above, but has some like a parallel existence similar to the Buddha, but it has a different mission, as a like using what you were saying, that was that a Buddha would be to teach, come
Well,
to the confusion and try to direct.
I don't know what other, you said another kind of enlightened being other than a Buddha that has a different kind of mission. If I'm getting your question right, I'm trying to get as close as possible. I don't know what other mission there is for any enlightened being other than to try to help others to similarly get to that state beyond confusion. And it doesn't matter if you're, let's say, incarnate as a enlightened Muslim or enlightened Jewish person or enlightened Hindu or enlightened Native American or whatever. I mean, enlightenment is enlightenment. Again, it's not culturally based, and it doesn't really belong to any particular ism. I think that's very important. We talk about universal beings. It's not male, it's not female, it's not Indian or American or it's not based on anything, right? I think that's the important notion, that it's transcends any kind of limiting label or conventional understanding. We can't put an enlightened being in a box and say they look like this and they fit this kind of figure, this kind of mold or something.
Do you think we will see an enlightened being in our lifetime?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
We can't. Well, it's possible because there are some walking around, I think, on this planet. It's partly. I'm trying to think how to say this, Tal. If you're skeptical, you're not going to ever see it, even if it's right in front of you. We see what we sort of almost, let's say, expect to see. I could say that I have seen two Karmapas, the 16th Karmapa and the reincarnation, the current 17th Karmapa. In my view, and again, these are perhaps somebody else would look and not see them that way, but I see them as fully enlightened beings, fully awakened, completely unstuck, and having the ability to actually help others in a way that's, to me, breathtaking and astounding and beyond question, actually, for myself. That's my view. We call it, it's just my view. So I can't say that you would meet one of these beings and feel the same way, necessarily have the same perception. But so I can't say you will meet an enlightened being, because you might meet one and not recognize them. And I'm not saying to you, I'm saying, anybody. Does that make sense? Is that I'm not sure if that answers your question. You ask very tough questions. So.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's great.
When I think of an enlightened being, you ever see Watchmen with the Dr. Manhattan, the enlightened being, but he's a man through time. He doesn't He doesn't experience time. He knows everything, and he's wise. He knows everything, and he doesn't experience time in a linear type of way. And when I think of a Buddha, I think of him in that kind of
Well,
context.
okay. Maybe the Buddha's a watchman or the watchman's a Buddha. I've never seen it. I
Well,
don't know.
Dr. Manhattan, yeah.
Okay, I don't know. You're out of my league here with that. But
There's in that just to give you the story end of that story. There's a scene in the movie where the bad guy is stopping Dr. Manhattan from knowing things through some tachyons or whatever, science stuff. And Dr. Manhattan says to him, "I want to thank you for giving me the ability to not know again." Like, so he was thankful for not being able to know. It was interesting.
well, it's imaginative writing.
Yeah.
Um, uh, the Buddha, I don't think could you can't regress once you reach that level, let's say. So we have a notion in Tibetan, we say dorje, or vajra is the Sanskrit, and it means indestructible. And it means when you're truly awakened, it's not something you can backslide on,